Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I hope I'm audible, right? It's what, 4 p.m. So I guess whoever is sitting here is quite committed. Yeah, so that's a good thing. Kiara there already promised us that she will be very attentive. So we have at least one person who is committedly attentive to this session. So she's the standard. Rest of you guys, please keep it up. We are going to talk about renewable energy. We are going to talk about the Bangladesh situation. We are going to talk about textile and RMG industry. And someone like me who has been talking about this for some time, who you have probably seen a few times in this same stage talking about the same thing, you probably are bored and you know all the cliches, and we will probably repeat ourselves a little here today as well. But I think the repetition is key here because not a lot have achieved in terms of renewable energy in Bangladesh. Not a lot have achieved in terms of renewable energy in textile and RMG industry yet. We have a long way to go. So the discussion today that we are going to have, we would like to see how this can happen. We have a few panel participants here who are representing the textile industry, a couple of them. We have someone who is working in the renewable energy sector in the electric vehicles as well. And we have Edwin as well from the European Union, who is from the development partner side, also can explain what they are doing and how they are planning to support Bangladesh. So I want to start with Asif Bhai, with you. So the question that I have for you is basically, being a textile entrepreneur, what sort of challenges you are facing right now in terms of transitioning to renewable energy? I know that there are many factories right now in Bangladesh who are using rooftop solar. But there could possibly be more, but that's not even enough. I know we have done quite a few strides in terms of energy efficiency as well, but at the same time, we probably need to do a lot more. But what's stopping us from doing that? Is it about finance? Is it about the policies? Is it about the price of electricity? What's stopping us from going there, from your perspective?
Sure, thank you. So I'm representing Ananta Group, which is one of the leading apparel exporters in Bangladesh. We have about 7 different factories, mostly in the garmenting stage of the production. 3 of our factories are in the jeans kind of production stage. So we actually have the cut and sew, as well as we have the laundries for the finishing of the jeans, which actually run 24 hours and are quite water and energy intensive. So I think when you're talking about transitioning to green energy or renewable, so we have kind of implemented rooftop solar in one of our denim units. It's been running for the past 1 year, and if you look at it, the impact is quite tiny actually, right? So when we looked at it, the total electricity that's being consumed with the sewing as well as the washing, and the washing runs 24 hours. The solar panels are only kind of providing about 5% of the total electricity requirement. And that does not include the thermal requirement, the amount that we're actually using to produce steam, which is coming from the gas, actually. So you can imagine, say, as a requirement for the total energy requirement for that particular factory, it's much less than 5%. It's probably like then coming down to 2% or even less. And part of the problem is, again, like the factory is multi-storied, so we don't have a lot of rooftop space compared to the amount of production space that's there. And then, of course, in Bangladesh, it's a cloudy country. The solar panels are only working about less than 4.5 hours per day, if you do the math. Versus if the garment factory is running like 10 hours, or the textile or the laundries are running, say, 24 hours, then by definition, the solar is only going to provide a very small part of the total requirement. So, I mean, the good news is that solar is cheap. It's definitely cheaper than what we're paying to the grid right now. There is a lot of low-cost financing available. So we're not seeing any issues related to the cost of solar or the financing opportunities. There's also companies like SolShare and others who are offering an OPEX model where they will install and charge the factories on an ongoing basis. So I think the rooftop solar is great. It works. It's affordable, and we should go ahead and do it. But at most, you're talking about 2 to 5% of the total energy requirement. And as Ananda Group, we're also looking at investing in textiles. And again, textiles is the same thing. It's going to run 24 hours. It's a very energy intensive, a lot of water, a lot of energy, a lot of chemicals. So how do we actually, when you're talking about transitioning, are we talking about 100% transition? And that's frankly unrealistic at this point. So we'll see how like the cost of storage and all of that comes down. Now I think one of the things that no one's really talking about is in Bangladesh the gas is highly subsidized. So right now we're paying about 30 taka per cubic meter, and the government recently said they want to double it to 70 taka, because that's what actually the government is paying to import the LNG, and essentially they're subsidizing it, which is really unfair to the taxpayers of the country, right? So if you assume that the gas will double over the next, say, 1 year to 70 taka, then essentially it becomes, not very affordable for us. And so the only alternative now, as factories, we should all be looking at actually coal, right? So switching the entire infrastructure to coal, because that's obviously cheaper than what the true price of LNG is. But of course, coal is dirty, and no one wants it. But if you look at the reality, our main competitors, China, Vietnam, India, are all running on coal, and the customers seem to be fine with that for now. So that also is a topic I think we need to discuss. We've also looked at, as an alternative to coal, maybe some kind of a biomass, solution that can come in. There's some innovations in Taiwan and other countries around using biomass, and some of the you can use the cotton waste, but that of course is more valuable as like kind of recycled fiber. So biomass could be a solution. Otherwise, it has to be coal. If you really reflect the true price of LNG, it's not really affordable for Bangladesh and for the textile producers. And then I think finally the real solution, I think, going forward probably has to be innovation at the process level. So we need to adopt technologies that use less water, and which in turn would use less energy and less chemicals. So as Ananta, we are looking at solutions to probably do away jeans finishing altogether, go into some kind of digital technology. Or we are looking at, for fabric dyeing, looking at some waterless or very low kind of water usage. So I think the innovations at the process level can really make the difference, because otherwise rooftop solar is only going to get us 5% of the solution. And then we have this problem with LNG, and ultimately we have to switch to coal in a year. So that is a much bigger headache, right? So I think these are kind of some of the topics we're working with at the moment. And we'll see how it goes. And of course, our customers are kind of very supportive. They're also looking for solutions. But if you're talking about getting to 100%, it's not going to happen in a year, or if at all, unless we really change kind of how we're using the water and the energy and the chemicals that goes into our production process.
Maybe I have a supplementary question to that. Of course, that was not included in the cheat sheet. So Asif bhai, you pointed out to quite a few things that are very important. First of all, of course, roof space is never going to be enough. Even if we cover all the roof spaces in Bangladesh, it will only cover 17% of the energy demand that you guys have. So where will the rest of the 83% electricity come from? 17% if you cover the rooftops of all the factories. That's yeah. Okay. Yeah. We can argue about the data all the time. So this 80 to 90% of the renewable electricity that you will additionally need, where can that come from if you want to do the transition? Of course, you are right that LNG price is increasing, and on top of that, there is LNG supply crisis as well. That over the years, our industries has been hit by that, right? Have you think about anything about off-site procurement of electricity, like off-site solar plants and stuff like that? Of course, currently the Bangladeshi policy does not allow that, but do you think anything of that sort will help you? Or is there a battery storage solution that can be useful? That's something that we can talk about?
So I think that's under works. I think the government is looking at like an off-take agreement kind of thing. So you'll still have the similar problems, because you need a lot of land. If the government provides the land and investors come in, that's good. We can always off-take, but again, the sun only shines for 4.5 hours. So again, that is the problem, right? So unless you have battery storage or some other solution, it's not going to be able to like offset. And then, so I mean, those fundamentals are not really changing at the moment. Maybe it will in the future. So I think just to say that we'll have so much land, and I don't know if the battery will come in at some point that to be able to power textile factory 24/7. Right now, when you do the calculations, you have to say if a textile factory costs like $50 million, just to, have enough battery storage to, electrify the factory, it'll cost you 100 million just to, take out the gas portion, right? So it's right now it's not feasible. The 100 million for the panels and the battery, and not even including the land. So it's just too expensive right now. But we'll see how that comes in. So those are problems that I think government will need to figure out actually.
Thank you, Asif bhai. I think on that point I will come back to Sebastian at some point. But for now I want to go to Sohail bhai. Sohail bhai, similar to Asif bhai, you are also in the textile industry. You are also doing this business for some time, and Bangladesh textile industry has the history of energy efficiency and energy savings for some time now. But if we still visit the factories, we still see that a lot of the machineries are old. A lot of motors are not even rated. Some motors are probably IE1, IE2, but we are not really go for the high efficiency motors yet. It's just one part of the game. There are so many other things happening in the textile process, as Asif bhai was just mentioning, that we need to have innovation in the process level. Why do you think that even if the technology is available, it's not penetrating the Bangladesh market in a speed that we would really love it to? What's happening here? What are the blocks or the challenges in this road?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, organizer, to give opportunity on this dais. I will explain in a little bit different way, because renewable energy we can adapt by solar panel, there is a waste water management. Everything is possible for us, but it is investing money matters. In my factory, in Bangla Poshak, I'm representing SME. I don't have dyeing factory. I only the sewing unit. I make fabric myself, but I buy the yarn, I knit it myself, and I dye in like a big some other factories who have dyeing. So in my factory, we don't have that much space to put all these things. What we are doing at this moment, renewable energy in the long run, it is our investment. We focus on that part, and we think that our opportunity, the customer are conscious about the environment and sustainability, they will encourage us, and we have our own branding. So what we are doing in our capacity, we are changing our machineries in automations, glass motor to servo motors. What is in our capacity, we are doing very slowly, step by step. We segregate our jutes in a different format. We separate ourselves. We don't have enough space in our factory. We take outside rent, and we are segregating there. So in this way, we are keep our step in the this sustainable life. In most of the SMEs, that is, Mr. Asif is telling very well, that we don't have any space. But in my factory, I have a multi-story, that is 5 floor, 5,000 square feet per floor. So with the compliance, structural and fire and electrical, all the space is gone. Even that with the expert, I work with Solidariat, we assess our factories. We can put solar panel, we can establish wastewater management STP, we can put rain harvest water, but it is cost-wise, obviously for the long-term investment is okay, but presently it is very difficult. So my point of view for the SMEs, what we can do, there is some factories nearly very close, or some residential building also there. So we can use all the top floor, where the other residents also, investing in a big way, supply to the 3-4 factories, and taking the rent every month, because we can get the stable electricity supply. It will reduce the pressure of the national grid, and it is very important for the machineries uniform electricity supply. Now we are getting from the national grid, as well as there's a stop, we are even giving the diesel generator, which is carbon emission is very high. So my point of view to awareness is one of the most important to the owners as well as society. Then we can cluster the things, and in that way we can go forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Solveig. That actually is a brilliant idea, that we do not need to look only inside the factory premise. For land and for space, we can look beyond our factories, where we can put up solar panels and we can offtake the electricity directly from there. It can be direct power purchase, it can be other methods of power purchase, but we need to have certain policies in place so that we can do that in Bangladesh. So very interesting point, and thank you very much for that. Sebastian, as promised, I'm coming back to you. So we have heard from Asif Bhai, we have heard from Suhail Bhai, and they have pointed out to the same thing, that first of all, we can only put so much solar panel on the rooftop. So even if we do it everything for the rooftops, this is not going to be enough, first of all. And to be frank, we have not even achieved that, so that also needs to be considered, that we have not really done so much there. We have still a long way to go, but still. So that tells us that there is really a business need for energy storage, right? So how that can be handled? I understand that we had this discussion some time ago, and that Bangladesh has 5 million electric vehicles, if we call them that, right? So these are like 5 million distributed energy storage around. So is there an opportunity that we can connect these two ideas somehow? Is there anything that we can do beyond that? And both of them was talking about the space constraint for solar panels. So what can be done here so that this sort of offtake of electricity from different location can also happen? So two questions directed at you.
Thank you, Faisal. Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me here. I'm representing Solshare as well as the Greener Garments Initiative, which is a special purpose vehicle between Bestseller and Solshare, and recently also One True Value. First things first, so we have a capacity based on research which is 30 gigawatt peak in rooftop solar. So we're talking here from individual factory levels, and I hear us if it's only 5%. I think that's quite, obviously that's quite disappointing from an individual factory owner's perspective. But if we look at the bigger picture of the country, we have 30 gigawatts. And even if it's only 4.5 hours of sunshine, if you take this times 30 gigawatts, we're done. Right? Then problem solved. It's not as easy, obviously. And I think you hinted already toward, but also on this note, if you have a diesel generator, I'll make you the case today that I put you solar and storage, which will be cheaper than your diesel generator. If you consider not only the diesel cost, but also the amortization of your diesel genset itself. So I think even though we have this huge, and what Asif said, if the gas price doubles, we'll also be cheaper than gas with solar plus storage. And then is when things become really, really interesting. So the elephant in the room, and we had it in the discussion before, is the electricity price, right? In Pakistan, we have a significantly higher price. How much solar PV have they imported last year? 15 gigawatt. I mean, they have a whole different discussion right now. They have a discussion on, okay, now we have 15 gigawatts of solar, how do we stabilize our grid because we have so much intermittency? We also have this discussion here sometimes, but I'm not sure why, because as you just said, we have a long way to go to even get to this point. But we will, and that's why I agree, we need to think about storage from day zero, and storage is very expensive. Asif gave the numbers. I mean, that's obviously in no comparison to the total, if the electricity infrastructure is more expensive than the factory itself, right? So on those EVs, I think what is important also to realize is that in Bangladesh, because of so much captive generation on the premises of the textile industry, our peak in Bangladesh, peak load is actually in the evening, which is peculiar, but it is the case here. And unfortunately, last time I checked, the sun doesn't shine when we have peak load. So that's a fundamental problem we have to address. And I don't see any other solutions than deploying storage. Now we can think of big storage, and I think there the prices are coming down, and certain projects are being done right now as on a pilot base. But on those EVs, if we have 5 million vehicles with batteries, so how can we not imagine a future where those EVs not only move people, but also move power? Because at the end of the day, you have 5 million batteries on wheels. If you can remotely control them, you can leverage them. And that's not only a theoretical concept. We have recently deployed the first of those, we call it a rickshaw VPP. A VPP is a virtual power plant, but it's very real on the ground. And if you extrapolate those numbers, you can buffer 30% of the total national load with those combination of those batteries. That is significant. And even if you do something very simple and those 5 million vehicles are not allowed to charge up to midnight, you already take a lot of pressure from the grid at these peak hours where, what do we have there? We have all the dirtiest plants imaginable, which we have to power up with those rental power plants. Everybody's against it, but we need them right now because we have that pressure. So shifting demand is one thing, which ideally you do automatically through IoT, but also then we have the data by now. We have millions of vehicles coming at 7, 8 p.m. into those garages with 30, 40% depths of discharge on their battery. This can be discharged to a healthy 15, 20%, and you buy it back at midnight at a lower tariff. It's a typical play of a virtual power plant, but we can actually do it in mass here, because the big difference is in Europe, in the US, all those EV owners, this is one Tesla or one BYD, but our garages have 50, 100 units in the same place every night at the same time. So if you're smart about it, you can leverage those. So we have done it in a small pilot. We're looking to scale it up, and that means that the cost of storage is already inbuilt because the battery is bought for that vehicle. So you don't need to invest additional capital for that storage. You can just leverage what is already there. So you have a double use case there. I hope I made a bit of appetite on innovation here, Faisal.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sebastian. That's a bit theoretical and technical, of course, but you said that you have done some pilot.
It's done.
It's done, and then we can scale it up. So
Edwin is laughing. It's not science fiction. It's done. It's happening. Anybody who wants to see it, I can show you the data. I can bring you there and can show you.
Perfect. So that means that there are challenges, and there are some solutions that are coming up, or some solutions that are already there, and we can work on that. But going from this very technical discussion to a bit of a very real discussion, I'm coming to Edwin, because 50% of the textile that we export from Bangladesh goes to Europe. And Europe is the major export destination for us, and Europe is coming up with a lot of legislation to control this fashion industry. There is eco-design for sustainable product regulation, there are carbon border adjustment, there are due diligence, there are many, many things coming up, Edwin. So what I want to know from you is how this is going to affect Bangladesh, how this is going to affect ASIF, how this is going to affect Sohail, and how you think that Bangladesh should plan for that, first of all. Second of all, what sort of advice or you will give to the policymaker to look in the policy landscape and change that will help these industries to grow further and sustain?
Well, thank you. Am I audible? Yes. Yeah. Thank you, and many thanks for having me here. So indeed, I'm Edwin from the European Union, working on climate, energy, environment with a big team and many projects. First of all, indeed, it's good to explain where Europe is coming from and why this is important for European buyers. Because indeed, Europe is now the biggest market for export from Bangladesh. So also with the new European Commission, we had elections in Europe, we have a new European Commission, a new European Parliament. Also with our new European administration, climate change and the European Green Deal is at the core of our legislation. In the mission letters to the new commissioners, it has been phrased every time, our success will be assessed on the basis of how successful we are with the implementation of our so-called European Green Deal. And this Green Deal has targets for 2030, which is at least minus 55% greenhouse gas emissions But now we are discussing the target for 2040 in the context of the need to update our nationally determined contribution, which we need to submit under the Paris Agreement. And the target that the Commission mentioned in earlier studies is minus 90% of greenhouse gas emissions by 2040. So just to explain, we are very ambitious at home in the area of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. We have a lot of legislation in place that is about to enter into force or that is entering into force, such as the Corporate Due Diligence Directive already mentioned by you, which is not only focusing on labor rights, but also on meeting environmental standards. And relevant for the discussion today, it also requires buyers to look at their suppliers. They become sort of responsible for the supply chain, and they need to make a climate transition plan. And I will get back to that. There is also the Corporate Sustainable Reporting Directive, which requires the companies to report on how they meet labor rights and environmental standards. Then there is the digital product passport, which is a digital passport for the for sustainable products. So also in the textile sector, it means that you can digitally see from what material the product is made, where it's coming from, and by doing so, this gives manufacturers, retailers, and also consumers the possibility to take well-informed decisions. Then there is the Circular Economy Action Plan, which contains the idea of extended producer responsibility. Again, climate being one of the elements, because by having a more circular economy, you reduce your greenhouse gas emissions. You simply need less energy. You also mentioned the carbon border adjustment mechanism, which actually at the moment is not relevant for the textile sector. The textile sector is not one of these sectors that is subject to the carbon border adjustment mechanisms. But this year there will be an evaluation where the new sectors will be added. I don't think that currently this is one of these sectors, because we really look at the carbon intensive industries in Europe, like steel and cement and also electricity actually. So I'm not saying now that this will likely be one of the new sectors, but currently it's not. Having said all this, I'm trying to make the point for the buyers from Europe. It's extremely important to be able to say that the projects that they buy, that they are coming from producers that are actually taking decarbonization seriously. And while Bangladesh is doing well, I think in the area of circular economy, other environmental standards, Bangladesh is not doing well if you look at decarbonization. This I learned from the buyers. Actually, they are carefully looking at the decarbonization trajectory of Bangladesh and those of your competitors, India, Indonesia, Vietnam, China, Cambodia. And what you see is that in those other countries, the electrification rate is much higher, and the share of renewable energy in the energy mix is much, much higher. So my advice to Bangladesh would be really look at the decarbonization trajectory of your sector and really try to see how you can strengthen the grid and how you can increase your renewable energy share. I can talk for much longer, but I understand that my time is up. So just very briefly, so we are trying to support Bangladesh in this green energy transition through a so-called Team Europe initiative on the green energy transition. So this means not only the European Union, but also the EU member states. We're all very active in promoting renewable energy. We have a Bangladesh Renewable Energy Facility, which is a 350 million loan and a 45 million grant, trying to increase the share of renewable energy in the grid. We also have, for example, a project, I think that's very relevant for the audience here, that now just finalized. It's the so-called Safety Retrofits and Environmental Upgrading Project, which provided loans to factories at factory level for effluent treatment plants, energy efficient machinery, and also rooftop solar. And it had both a loan and a grant. So if the loan was really used in the way it was designed and it was a successful project, then there is also a performance grant. And we have been able to support 62 factories in total, and the full loan has been allocated to these factories. So for us, that's a very successful project, and we are now looking into, together with AFD, because the loan was coming from the AFD and the grant from EU and KfW. We are now looking into possible phase 2. There's much more to say, but
thank you, Edwin. Thank you. That's actually great. So we now hear from you that there is a barrage of regulations that are coming at Bangladesh being a textile production country, and we need to prepare for that. And we hear from you like what sort of support European Union is providing us. Now I see that I have 4 minutes left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly summarize what we discussed here. And then I'm going to give you one further opportunity, because I need to also take away from you guys as World Bank, what would be your expectations? So let me come to that. So if I summarize, so Asif Bhai was mentioning that, first of all, we do not have enough roof space. Second of all, we do not have enough solar irradiability, so which leads us to the discussion of solar storage, that we need to have some sort of renewable energy storage to make sure that our grid, first of all, we have enough renewable energy, and then we also need to think about our grid stability. On that point, Edwin, you also mentioned that we need to look at the transmission and distribution network of Bangladesh, like how we can improve it, how we can enhance it. So this is also an area of interest for Bangladesh. If they want to transition to renewable energy, there is nothing without the grid being improved. Sebastian, you also pointed out like the solutions that are already available and being tested and tried. For instance, like the electric vehicles, their garages, how they can become a battery storage solution, how they can become virtual power plants, and how they can support the textile industry at the same time as well. So I also mentioned the transition that they are doing in terms of energy efficiency, in terms of other activities that they are doing, and how it is difficult for a SME to find the investment and find the financing and to do a much better job. But at the same time, we also pointed out that there are huge business cases very easily to transform the diesel generators that we have, take them away and put solar panels on their places, and it makes absolute business sense. So now we have 2 minutes left, and I want to give each of you 30 seconds and to explain what is your takeaway and what would be your expectation from the multilateral agencies, how they can support the transition in Bangladesh. Thank you. Asif bhai,
I think there was a great discussion, so just definitely hearing the different perspectives. So I think my takeaway is that as a textile producer or apparel producer, we need to have a roadmap in place. The regulations seem to be quite real and coming up soon. So I think from an individual factory level as well as the BGMA or the industry, it's high time we have a roadmap that is clearly communicated to all the stakeholders. That what's the shift to the renewables looking like? How can we support not just the big factories, even the smaller factories, the SMEs? Maybe discuss with the government in terms of acquiring land and investing in kind of those solar projects, storage projects. So I think it's high time we come together and kind of have that roadmap published, so that creates a lot of clarity for our customers as well as in the European Union and so on. And maybe it won't be 100% tomorrow, but at least let's have the roadmap to get there, at 20%, 30%, whatever that is, next few years.
Thanks again. So very briefly, my takeaway is indeed that we need to work, which we are trying to do closely with the sector, to see how you can improve energy efficiency, how you can use other land which is available to, or other rooftops which is available to increase the renewable energy in the energy mix. But also, I think there is an important role for the government to have a good integrated energy master plan to strengthen energy efficiency, renewable energy, the grid, storage, and in our narrative, we also think it's important to have regional energy connectivity, to be well connected to to the neighboring countries. Thank you.
Thank you. I put one request here, because World Bank is here, European Union is here, Solaric here. So I request from European Union as the World Bank, give some specialist, technical specialist, accumulate with BGME and BKMA, assess the big factories one way, and smaller factories also, SMEs, like 50 factory visited and technical expert are assessed, what can be scope of storage, what can be the scope of renewable energy to be assessed. And accordingly, that should be we can invest ourselves, we can take some soft loans, because I assess my rooftop panel, it will pay back almost in 5 to 7 years. So this needed to asset as a cluster-wise 50, 65 factories. Then you know the real picture of execution of this renewable energy. That is my request to survey the first, to see the real picture. So if it is a storage possible, we can go for a storage. I don't need a diesel generator. I don't need personally. So that's my request in this platform.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next is suggestion. I'm happy to do that. We have the money sitting here to finance it. So I think we're all, if that's our takeaway from the session, that's good. And one final thought, if we know something is happening, as in electricity prices will go up, then we shouldn't wait until it's happening, right? We should start right now. And the last thought is, I would urge the textile owners not to underestimate the complexity of investing in a 20-year long-lasting asset. Because we hear a lot, oh yeah, I can do that. I think I would think twice if I want to commit to such an investment. I'm talking now CapEx versus OpEx, which we didn't cover, maybe next time. But that would be my last thought. But I like yours much better.
Thank you. And I think we have only taken 2 to 3 minutes more than the estimated time. So thank you everyone for keeping us on track. And thank you for whoever was attentively listening to us. Thank you.